we are going to be reviewing how to add and subtract fractions. I have included a super cute little math animal to maybe make the process a little bit friendlier and happier. I don't know if that helps. Maybe when you're studying and looking at it, it might make you smile. I don't know. But here are the rules to add or subtract fractions. Number one, we are going to find the lowest common denominator. We're going to remember the rule, whatever you do to the top, you have to also do to the bottom. We're going to add the numerators using the integer rules. We're going to keep the denominators the same, and then we're going to simplify. And just a reminder, we are not going to be using calculators, but we're going to have our multiplication sheets in front of us so that we can practice our multiplication table using that. Okay, so I have about 9 examples for you for this. We'll do all 9 examples, and then I will tell you what you're doing for the rest of the period. By the way, if you weren't able to finish the sheet that I gave you, that'll also be part of your homework. But like you can tell, it's not too difficult and it goes by pretty quickly. Okay, so here we have 2 fractions, 4/9, subtract 1/9. Everyone can see those. The first thing you need to analyze when you are adding or subtracting fractions is, are the denominators the same? If the denominators are the same, it makes the question 100 times easier. It makes the question 100 times easier for us because we don't have to, we can skip like 2 of the steps. So in this example, are the denominators the same? Perfect. If the denominators are the same, what we're going to do is we're just going to add or subtract the numerators, which are the top numbers. I want you to think of this like this. See how it's like 4 minus 1? This is basically the same as positive 4 subtract 1. Basically, if there's no sign in front of this number, it's going to be a plus. And see the subtraction sign? It belongs with this numerator. So you're basically thinking of it as positive 4 subtract 1. And this is an integer question. We've done a bunch of these, right? So what do you think is positive 4 take away 1? What would you get as an answer? Abarami? Positive 3, good. And then you guys, if the denominators are the same, what are we going to do? Are we going to subtract these denominators, make it a 0? Are we adding them, or are we just keeping them the same? Shams? But yes, and what number am I going to write over here? Yeah, you're actually going to keep the denominators the same. It's just going to be a 9. So when we're adding and subtracting fractions, you don't do anything to the denominators. Once they're matching, you keep them the same. Is this our final answer, 3/9? Ari? Yep, and how would we? Good, and so our final answer would be 1/3. So in that marking, if I were to give you a quiz on this, this would be considered to be one of the easier questions. It would be like a question A, where the denominators are the same. You don't really have to do anything extra. You just go ahead and answer it. Let's do another question where the denominators are the same. So question 2, again, we have the same denominator, which is great. That means in my answer, I know the number is going to be a 6. Now this question's a little bit harder because you have a bunch of negative signs sprinkled around. If I were to think about this in terms of integers, I would write it like this. See this negative sign? It belongs to the 1. So it would be -1. And see this subtraction sign? It belongs with the 5. So it would be like saying -5. -1 minus 5. Okay, that's what you're thinking when you're adding the top numbers. So we're going to use our integer rules, same sign, add the numbers, and keep the sign. So anyone want to volunteer and tell me what you think the answer might be? -1 minus 5. Swadhana? It would be -6/6. Good. Yeah, and we can actually simplify this. I'm not too sure if you know this, but if you have the same number at the top and the same number at the bottom, that actually makes the number 1. So we simplify this to make it a -1. Another way to think about it is you're just dividing the top and the bottom by 6, right? 6 divided by 6, 6 divided by 6. How are we doing so far? Is it okay? Nice and simple, right? Okay. Now we're going to get into a slightly harder problem. And the reason why this question is more difficult is because we do not have a common denominator anymore. We have two different denominators. So our first step, if you look at the steps that that little raccoon or whatever is saying, is find the lowest common denominator. We're going to analyze the two denominators and we're going to ask ourselves, what is the lowest common denominator between 8 and 4? What do you think, Saoirse? Exactly. So another way to think about it is if I were to look at the 4 times multiplication table and the 8 times multiplication table, what numbers would be common between both of these that are as small as possible? That number would be 8. So this is already an 8. We don't need to do anything with this. What can we multiply the 4 by? Saoirse already told us. We're going to multiply this by 2 because we're trying to make it into an 8. Whatever you do at the bottom, you have to do to the top. So this number is also going to be multiplied by 2. And in the next step, we can start to simplify. So -7 over 8 plus, what do I get here when I multiply these numbers by 2? Yep, +6 over 8. Now, you guys, you're going to use integer rules. So the bottom number will be an 8 because that doesn't change. It's not negative or positive or anything. What is -7 plus 6 going to give us though, Shams? It's going to be -1 because remember, different signs, subtract the numbers and take the sign of the bigger number. And that would be our final answer. Okay, so here we have another question where the denominators are not the same. This time I'd like a volunteer to go ahead and help me with this question. Tell me what, Javen? Yeah, in order to find a common denominator, our lowest common multiple here is going to be a 12. So to make the 4 into a 12, I'm going to multiply by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So what am I going to do to the 3 here? Yep, I'm also going to multiply by 3. So Javen, keep going. What am I going to get for my next line? Yeah, 9 over 12 minus 9 over 12. This is interesting. What's 9 take away 9? Yeah, it's just going to be 0 over 12. And does anyone know if the top number is a 0, what's the entire fraction going to be? It's just going to be the number 0. And that is what we're going to put over here. Okay, now the next two fractions are similar but different. You're going to notice that they don't have a common denominator, so we have to make them the same, but they're a little bit trickier than the other one because in these questions 3 and 4, we were only multiplying one of the fractions. Now we're going to have to multiply both of the fractions to get what we want. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite it so I can be a little bit I can write a little bit larger here. You guys don't have to copy it down again if you don't want to. Okay, let's try to figure this out. What is the lowest common multiple between 8 and 6? If you were to look in the 8 multiplication table and the 6, what numbers are common between both of them that are as small as possible? Javen? 24. Yeah, that would be the lowest common multiple. Now here's a strategy. How can I make an 8 a 24? What can I multiply it by? Zara? Yeah, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I have to multiply both of them by 3. You have to be consistent. And then how can I make a 6 a 24? Yep, so multiply the bottom and the top by 4. What I do want to tell you is you don't have to multiply both of these by the same number. Just the same fraction has to be multiplied by the same number. Can I get a volunteer to help me multiply these numbers? Someone maybe that hasn't said anything yet and wants to. Manat, go ahead. Good. Excellent. Do you want to keep going? Oh, that's fine. So here we have, again, same denominator, which means our denominator will be a 24, and we're using our integer rules. Julia, -15 plus 20. It would be +5. Can we simplify this fraction anymore? Can we make the number smaller? We can't. And so this would be our final answer. Guys, I'm not really feeling the boxes I have. Maybe I can, oh, that's so much better. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm assuming we're all good. You know what, I'm gonna pause here. Go ahead and try question 6 yourselves. So resume recording. All right, someone wanna help me do this question? Javen, go ahead. So your lowest common multiple is a 21, you're right. So what did you multiply by? Yep. Yep. Okay, and then keep going. Tell me what the number should be. 21, yeah, negative 28 over 21, yep. And this one? Yep, 15 over 21. Now, when you're using integer rules, this is like saying negative 28 minus 15, same sign, add the numbers, keep the sign. I want you to keep remembering the rules for that so you don't get confused. Even though they're fractions, you're still using integer rules, negative 28 minus 15. Jen, what did you get for your final? So really close, but what you did is you subtracted the numbers. I want you to add the numbers and then keep the sign in front of both of them. Someone get something different? Aritra? Yes, negative 43 over 21. Again, why? Because you're thinking of this as negative 28 minus 15. Add the numbers and keep the sign. Can we reduce negative 43 over 21? Can we reduce it? Yeah. So you made it into a mixed fraction. Okay, if you choose to do that, that's fine. I'm going to keep them as improper. And if you want to keep them as improper, that's fine. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it as that. But you can't reduce this fraction any further. So we're going to keep going. All right, 7, 8, and 9 are what I consider to be the most challenging questions. So on the quiz, you would find these as the last 3 questions, okay? They're the highest level of difficulty. And the reason why is because what have we added to these questions now that we didn't have before? Yeah. Brackets, and also what kind of numbers are these? What kind of fractions? They're mixed fractions, exactly. Okay, so let's go over how we need to solve these questions. The first step is we are going to convert every mixed fraction into an improper fraction. I know if you've taken Kumon or certain courses, they add and subtract fractions with the mixed number, but I find it much easier to do it once you change it to an improper fraction. So this improper fraction, ignore the negative sign. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So this would be negative 5 over 3. We've practiced doing this in our previous lesson. And then we have some illegal activity going on. Even though they're fractions, it still appears. It seems like we have 2 signs next to each other that don't belong. So what will they clean up to? Yeah. Yeah, they will just become a single negative sign. And then this fraction seems to be good. It's going to be 7 over 9. So the reason why this question is trickier than the other ones is because you had to do the additional step of converting your mixed fraction to improper fractions and cleaning up the signs. From here, it should be pretty straightforward. So go ahead and solve it. I will do it on the screen and then we'll compare our answers. Okay. Okay, so another example, again, with a bunch of mixed fractions and a bunch of brackets and illegal signs and all that stuff. So first of all, I recognize that I have two negatives here, which we're going to have to deal with. Let's go ahead and convert these mixed fractions into improper fractions. A volunteer to tell me what the first one would be? Abrami? -8/3, good. The two negatives are going to become a positive. And what'd you get for this one, Abrami? 6/5. And if anyone is confused as to how we're doing that, ask me so that I can clarify. Really quickly, what you're going to do here is ignore the negative, multiply these, and add this. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. That's how I get the top number. The bottom number, the denominator, stays, whatever it was here, will stay here. Here again, the denominator is a 5. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So it'll be a 6/5. Okay, what will our denominators be here? What is our lowest common multiple in this case? Nicole? It'll be a 15. Good. So what do I multiply this fraction by? Excellent. And how about the other one? Thank you, Nicole. And then a volunteer to multiply all the numbers and tell me what the new fractions will be. Gabriel, go ahead. What's that? Yeah. Oh, you didn't raise your hand. Okay, sorry. Javen? -40/15, good. (18/15), good. And then as our final step, what are we thinking about this as? We are considering this to be -40 plus 18. So different signs, subtract the numbers, and take the sign of the bigger number. You may have to go to a separate sheet of paper to do this on the side. 40 take away 18. But once you do that, Javin, what did you get? So if the signs are different, like a negative and a positive, you subtract these numbers. If the signs are the same, like a negative and a negative, you add these numbers. It doesn't matter, even if this was +40 minus 18, if the signs are different, like a negative and a positive, positive, negative, subtract the numbers and you take the sign that is on the larger number. Okay, Nicole, go ahead. Perfect, -22/15. And can we reduce this fraction? But not, yeah, can we reduce the improper fraction and keep it as an improper fraction? No, we can't. Like I'm asking, can we divide the top and the bottom number by the same thing to make it smaller? The answer is no. All right, last question. I'll pause here. Go ahead and try it. So you guys, I kind of cheated and I went ahead and did the first step. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. This is 5/2. Any whole number can be made into a fraction by putting it over 1. So see this little -1 that's super random and really easy to miss? I made it into a -1/1. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So this is 10/3. When you, what am I trying to say? What is the common denominator here? Between 2 and 1 and 3. It's going to be a 6. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 and this by 3. What do I multiply this middle fraction by to make it into a 6? Good. So multiply by 6, multiply by 6. And then how about this third fraction? By 2 and 2. So lots of multiplication happening here. And then our next step is going to be 15/6 minus 6/6 plus 20/6. This is the hardest type of question you're going to see. It's going to be worth the most amount of marks because look at all the steps you have to do. First, you convert everything to mixed. Then you find a common denominator. And we're still not done. Now we have to add or subtract all of these numbers. So how do I want you to think about this? I want you to think about this as +15 minus 6. Remember, this negative sign belongs with the 6 plus 20. So now you're doing a little bit of integer work. I'm just going to do it on the side over here. 15 plus 20 is 35 minus 6, and this will be 29. Okay, so this is sort of like my rough work. My final answer here is going to be 29 over 6. Can I simplify this improper fraction? I can't. So that would be our final answer. Question? Let me tell you your homework. So what have we learned in this class today? We learned how to, well, we didn't learn, we reviewed how to add and subtract fractions. We started with 3 easy numbers. Then this is like more the middle level of difficulty questions. And then these are the harder questions with improper fractions and positive and negative numbers. To practice these skills, you are going to go to the next page, which is handout C1 in your sheet. And you are going to try all of these questions. We're not skipping anything. I want you to get lots of practice with fractions. So question 1 is telling you to reduce to lowest term, so simplify. Question 2, you're just comparing the fractions and trying to figure out which the larger one is. And question 3, it's just a whole bunch of what we've just been doing. As a reminder, every single handout of mine has the solutions at the bottom, so always check your work. And then in tomorrow's class, we'll begin by taking up this homework.